an elegant wedding in Valencia, or perhaps a revenge disguised as a party, when a businessman believes he can show off his success and humiliate his ex-wife in front of everyone. What he doesn't imagine is that she will arrive accompanied by her 2 identical babies, a sight so impressive it will leave all the guests in complete shock. The grand deception, the golden afternoon sun reflected on the calm waters of Parati Bay, while the last flowers were placed on the ornate altar erected by the sea. Murano crystals hung from noble wood structures, catching the light of dusk in a spectacle of colors that seemed to dance to the gentle rhythm of the breeze. Vintage champagne glasses awaited the 400 hand-picked guests from the country's business, political, and artistic elite. Nothing less would be expected from the wedding of Alex Harrison, the man who transformed a small family hotel chain into a global luxury hospitality empire. Behind the scenes of the ceremony, Alex adjusted his Italian silk tie in front of the mirror. At 42, his angular and well-groomed face did not reveal the sleepless nights dedicated to expanding his business. His brown eyes, always calculating, now showed a different shine. It wasn't exactly happiness, but the satisfaction of someone who completes a particularly advantageous transaction. "Just 15 more minutes, Mr. Harrison," his personal assistant said, checking the Swiss wristwatch he had received as a gift from his boss after closing a particularly lucrative deal the previous year. "Is everything going as planned?" Alex asked, running a hand through the graying hair at his temples, the only concession his pride made to the passage of time. "Absolutely everything, sir. Ms. Olivia is stunning. The VIP guests have already started to arrive, and the press is strategically positioned to capture the best moments." Alex nodded, satisfied. His marriage to Olivia Parker, the digital influencer who had won millions of followers with her luxurious and seemingly spontaneous lifestyle, was the perfect complement to his public image. At 28, Olivia represented youth, beauty, and, most importantly, the ability to connect the Harrison brand to a generation of consumers who valued exclusive and shareable experiences. On the other side of the historic city, in a small house with whitewashed walls and blue windows facing the sea, Sophia Davis stared at her reflection in the old dressing table mirror. At 39, her delicate face bore subtle marks of a pain that no makeup could disguise. Her green eyes, once always bright and hopeful, now seemed like 2 deep lakes where painful memories swam like invisible fish. "You don't have to do this," said Maria, the gray-haired woman who had been her housekeeper for 15 years of marriage to Alex and who chose to follow her after the divorce. "Leave them with their falsity and their money. You're finally building something new here." Sophia ran her fingers over the rough surface of an unfinished ceramic vase, one of the art pieces she had begun to create since moving to Paraty, 6 months after the humiliating divorce. "It's not for him, Maria," she replied in a calm voice as she pinned her brown hair in a simple bun. "It's for myself. For 15 years I lived in his shadow, believing I wouldn't be complete without bearing a child. I allowed him to define my worth." She stood up, smoothing her simple white cotton dress. "Today, that ends." Under Maria's worried eyes, Sophia picked up a small, carved wooden box with marine motifs, the work of a local artisan who had become her master and friend. At the luxurious seaside resort, the ceremony began with a precise timing. Olivia emerged at the end of the red carpet, stretched over the white sand, her high-fashion dress shimmering with thousands of crystals that caught the golden light of the setting sun. Alex waited for her with a rehearsed smile, aware of the cameras that were recording every moment of the event, estimated at 2 million rays. The guests murmured in admiration as the bride advanced gracefully down the makeshift aisle. Celebrities, politicians, and business people discreetly raised their smartphones to capture the perfect moment for their own social media. No one noticed the solitary figure who approached from the side of the beach, walking determinedly toward the ceremony. The officiant had just begun his speech about unity and commitment when a growing buzz began to spread among the guests. Alex, annoyed by the interruption in his carefully planned moment, turned to identify the source of the disturbance. That's when his eyes met the familiar face he never expected to see again in that context. Sophia walked calmly between the rows of chairs, her simple dress contrasting dramatically with the ostentatious luxury around her. The security guards hesitated, seemingly confused about how to act in the face of the groom's ex-wife, who advanced with silent dignity. "Get them out of here, now!" Alex ordered in a low voice to the head of security. But Sophia had already reached the small pulpit where the microphone rested. Before any security could stop her, she took it in her hands. The silence that followed was so absolute that one could hear the gentle breaking of the waves on the beach. "Good afternoon, everyone." Her voice was clear and surprisingly firm. "I only ask for a few minutes of your time. I promise I'll be brief." Alex took a step forward, but Olivia held his arm, her eyes fixed on Sophia with a curiosity that bordered on fascination. "Many here know me as Alex Harrison's ex-wife," Sophia continued. "For 15 years, I was Sophia Harrison, the perfect hostess, the dedicated wife, the woman who failed in her most important mission, to give an heir to the Harrison empire." The murmurs returned, now more intense, flashes fired frantically. Exactly 1 year ago, Alex announced our divorce to the press, explaining that I had hidden from him my inability to have children naturally, a convenient lie that turned me into the villain of the story and justified his relationship with Olivia, which began just 3 months after our separation. Sophia opened the small wooden box she was carrying and took out some papers. What Alex never told anyone is that, during our last year together, we did fertility treatments, and against all odds, we managed to create viable embryos that were frozen. She paused, her eyes meeting Alex's. "Embryos that legally belonged to both of us." Alex's face visibly paled. The camera flashes intensified. "After the divorce and all the public humiliation, I decided to use my legal right to these embryos. Not for revenge, but because after 15 years of dreaming of being a mother, I realized that I didn't need Alex to fulfill that dream." Sophia turned to face Olivia directly, whose confident smile was beginning to falter. "Today I didn't come here to ruin your party, Olivia. I just came to inform Alex that, in approximately 7 months, he will be the father of twins, the heirs he so desired for his empire." Chaos ensued instantly. Olivia dropped the bouquet of rare orchids on the floor, while Alex advanced furiously toward Sophia. The guests stood up, some shocked, others delighted with the scandal they were witnessing. "You had no right!" Alex shouted, his face contorted with rage. "This is crazy. I'm going to sue you and the clinic." Sophia remained serene, even when 2 security guards finally arrived to escort her. "The legal documents are all here." She handed the papers to a furious and trembling Alex. "Your signature authorizing the procedure is still valid even after the divorce. Consult your lawyers." As she was led away from the ceremony, Sophia cast one last look at Alex. "One day you told me that I was incomplete as a woman because I couldn't bear your children, that it was my duty to have told you before the wedding." Her voice showed no anger, only a deep sadness. "Today I understand that you were right about one thing. There were lies in our marriage. They just weren't mine." In the days that followed, the scene of the interrupted wedding went viral on social media. The hashtag Sophia the Warrior dominated national trends, with thousands of women sharing their own stories of overcoming and empowerment after abusive relationships. Alex tried to control the damage, issuing official statements that questioned Sophia's sanity and threatening defamation lawsuits. But the damage to his public image was already done. His company's stock fell 12% in just 2 days. Olivia, in turn, maintained a strategic silence, limiting herself to publishing a single photo on her social media. It was of herself, without makeup, with the enigmatic caption, "Not everything is as it seems." In her modest house in Paraty, Sophia finally felt the weight of the last few years leave her shoulders. Sitting on the porch that faced the sea, she gently caressed her belly, still flat, talking in a low voice to the small beings who were growing inside her, thanks to the surrogate mother she had secretly hired. "You will never be defined by the name you carry," she whispered to the sea breeze, "nor by money, nor by power. You will be loved for who you are, not for what you can offer or represent." That same night, kilometers away, in the luxurious penthouse in Sao Paulo, where they had fled after the wedding fiasco, Alex obsessively examined the documents left by Sophia. Every line, every signature, confirmed the unthinkable. He would be a father, but he would not have control over the process. Olivia watched him from the office door, her calculating eyes evaluating the man who now seemed much smaller than the corporate giant the world knew. "And now?" she asked finally, her voice revealing more curiosity than concern. Alex looked up, his face a mask of contained fury. "Now we're going to counterattack. No one does this to me and gets away with it." No one? But in the stillness of the night, when Olivia finally fell asleep, Alex found himself looking at an old photograph secretly kept in his drawer. He and Sophia, 10 years earlier, smiling on a deserted beach in Paraty, before the obsession with success consumed his ability to simply be happy. The man who had built an empire based on absolute control now faced the only thing he could never completely control: fate. And somewhere deep within him, an almost forgotten voice asked if everything he had conquered was worth the price he had paid. Meanwhile, in her seaside home, Sophia fell asleep peacefully for the first time in years, lulled by the sound of the waves and the promise of a new dawn. Her battle was just beginning, but now she was fighting on her own terms, no longer in the shadows of a man who confused power with worth. The starry sky of Paraty silently witnessed the beginning of a story that would forever unite these very different lives, connected by bonds stronger than contracts or social conventions. Because some bonds, as Sophia would discover in the following months, transcend time, pride, and even the deepest resentment. They are the invisible bonds that make us human, vulnerable, and ultimately true. And as the moon shed its silver light on the calm waters of the historic bay, fate began to weave its intricate web, setting the stage for a journey of redemption that none of those involved could imagine. A new reality. 6 months after the wedding scandal, the sun rose over Paraty Bay, painting the sky orange and reflecting in the mirrored windows of the newest hotel in the Harrison chain. On his panoramic terrace, Alex watched the horizon with tired eyes, holding a glass of rare whiskey. He hadn't slept, as was often the case in recent months. "You should rest," said Olivia, approaching in her silk robe. "The inauguration isn't until 7 p.m. Alex didn't turn around. "I had another call from the lawyers yesterday." "More trouble with Sophia?" "She refused the deal. I offered $5 million to make those children disappear." An enigmatic smile crossed Olivia's lips. "Sophia was never motivated by money. You should know that." "Everyone has a price," he replied, irritated. "Not everyone. And maybe that's what bothers you most about her." Alex pulled away from Olivia's touch, heading to the closet. As he chose a suit, his gaze fell on a small, hidden wooden box. For a moment, his hand hesitated, as if considering opening it. Instead, he closed the drawer forcefully and chose a perfect charcoal suit to convey power during the press conference. A few kilometers away, Sophia awoke to the soft crying of one of the twins. Her bare feet touched the cold floor as she headed to the room where Leo and Liam, now 3 months old, slept in identical cribs. "Good morning, my little early bird," she whispered, lifting Leo, whose brown eyes, identical to his father's, stared at her curiously. "Let's let your brother sleep just a little longer." Sophia walked to the porch, cradling the baby against her chest as she contemplated the same sunrise that Alex was watching. "See, Leo," she murmured to the baby who was nursing peacefully. "This is our world now. It's not as big or luxurious as the one your father built, but it's real. It's authentic." Maria came in bringing tea and homemade bread. "Liam is still asleep." Sophia nodded, settling into the rocking chair as Liam continued to nurse, his tiny hand resting on his mother's breast in absolute trust. "Did you get any more messages from his lawyers?" "2 calls yesterday. They raised the offer to $5 million. And you?" "I refused, of course." There was serenity in her words. "There's no money in the world that can buy this, Maria." She caressed the baby's cheek. "This moment, this love, he won't give up easily. I don't expect him to give up. I hope he learns, that he understands that there are things in life that cannot be bought or negotiated like properties in his investment portfolio." At the hotel's convention center, Alex was conducting the final meeting with his team before the press conference. Analysts project a some increase in stock after the inauguration. David Chen, his financial director, informed him. The scandal of the wedding incident had been practically forgotten by the market. "And the expansion to Dubai?" Alex asked, ignoring the mention of the incident. "Negotiations are advanced. The Sheikh is quite interested after the modifications we made to the project." Alex nodded, satisfied. The conquest of the Middle Eastern market was the next step in his plan to transform the Harrison chain into a global brand. Nothing would divert his focus. "Excellent. I want the preliminary contract by the end of the month, and prepare a statement about the international expansion for tonight's cocktail party." Olivia came in, stunning in a red dress that accentuated her perfect curves. "Ready to shine, darling?" she asked, adjusting his tie in a rehearsed gesture of intimacy that photographers captured through the glass walls. "I always am. Remember, during the press conference, focus on the sustainable aspects and the program with local artisans. The press loves that kind of story." Olivia nodded, instantly adopting the expression of a proud and socially conscious wife. "I know exactly what to say." And she did. In the 6 months of marriage, Olivia had adapted perfectly to the role of brand ambassador. Her social media, once dedicated to fashion and lifestyle, now included content on sustainable hospitality and conscious luxury. What no one saw were the nights they slept in separate rooms, the tense dinners, the growing emptiness between them, disguised by expensive jewelry and extravagant trips that Olivia displayed on Instagram. At the ceramics studio, where she worked 3 days a week, Sophia carefully molded a vase on the wheel. The twins were sleeping in a wicker bassinet, a gift from Mrs. Elena, the elderly ceramist who had become her mentor. "You have talent, my dear," the woman observed. "Your hands speak to the clay. I learned from the best." No, Mrs. Elena shook her head. "I just showed you the way. The talent was always inside you, just waiting for the right moment to awaken." The simple words touched Sophia deeply. During the 15 years of marriage, her identity had been reduced to the wife of, her aspirations replaced by her husband's grandiose plans. "Before, I thought my greatest failure was not being able to have children naturally," Sophia commented. "Today I understand that my true failure was allowing someone else to define my worth." "That's how it is, my daughter. We only recognize the cage after we learn to fly." One of the babies woke up. Sophia found Leo watching her intently. "Hello, my little explorer," she smiled, lifting him gently. "Tired of sleeping already?" The baby responded with a happy coo. Sophia held him against her chest, marveling at the feeling of completeness she had never experienced in the luxurious mansions she had shared with Alex. "Sometimes I think about what he's missing," she confessed. "These moments, these little daily miracles. Perhaps that's what he needs to learn," Mrs. Elena replied after a moment of silence. "Some people, especially men like your ex-husband, only value what they can't buy when they realize they've lost something irreplaceable. These boys are more than heirs. They are his chance to discover what truly matters." Sophia reflected on the old woman's words. "I don't want to use them to teach Alex lessons. They deserve more than being pawns in a game of wounded adults. And that's why you'll be a great mother. Because you understand that little ones are not extensions of ourselves, but beings with their own journeys." A phone notification interrupted the conversation. Sophia's face changed to one of concern as she saw the photo of Alex and Olivia at the press conference. The headline announced, "Harrison defies scandal and inaugurates hotel in Parity. Ex-wife and children live in the same city." "It's just the beginning," Sophia murmured, hugging Leo tighter. "The press is already connecting the dots. Soon this place will cease to be our refuge." At the hotel, the press conference had turned into a cocktail party for selected journalists. Alex circulated among the guests with ease, his smile never revealing the storm inside. "Mr. Harrison," a journalist approached, "there are rumors that your ex-wife lives in Parati with your biological children. Is the choice of this city for your venture related to that fact?" Alex's smile froze momentarily. "My personal life and business decisions are separate spheres," he replied coldly. "Parati was chosen for its tourism potential and cultural richness." Walking away, he ordered a double whiskey. His communications director approached, concerned. "We need to prepare a statement about the family situation," he whispered. "The press is making connections. There's nothing to declare. My private life is not up for discussion. But this affects the company's image. The investors care about results." Alex cut him off. "The rest is noise. There's also the issue of succession. Since the news about the twins became public, shareholders have questioned the future of the company." For a moment, something dark crossed Alex's gaze. "The future of the company is in my hands. My children, if I can call them that, are a legal matter that is being handled." Olivia approached, sliding her arm through his in a possessive gesture that the cameras did not fail to capture. "Is everything okay?" she asked with false sweetness. "Perfectly. Just the usual." She brought her lips to his ear. "I heard she refused the $5 million. Alex stiffened. "How do you know that?" "I have my sources. What matters is that you need to understand something about Sophia that you could never see. She was never with you for the money or status. This meant that you can't use those things to get rid of her now." In the private apartment of the hotel, late at night, Alex finally allowed himself a moment of solitude. He poured himself a large whiskey and walked to the balcony overlooking the historic city. His eyes scanned the streets and inevitably searched for the region where Sophia lived with the twins. The darkness prevented him from distinguishing any details, but the simple awareness that they were so close caused a disturbing sensation that he couldn't name. "What do you really want, Alex?" The voice of his father, George Harrison, echoed in his mind. George had been a man who died rich, powerful, and completely alone. His cell phone vibrated with a message from his lawyer. "Investigators' report has arrived. You need to see this." Attached was a file with photographs. Sophia walking through the historic center with the twins, working in the ceramics studio, talking to local fishermen, sitting on the beach at sunset. The babies asleep next to her. The last image hit him deeply. Sophia breastfeeding one of the babies on her porch, the other asleep in a nearby basket. Her face conveyed a peace that Alex had never seen during the years of their marriage. The report concluded, subject refused significant financial offer. Behavioral analysis suggests emotional, not material, motivation. Alternative approach recommended. Alex closed the file, a knot in his throat. For a moment, He allowed himself to imagine a reality where he hadn't let the obsession with success poison everything, including his marriage. Olivia arrived, interrupting his thoughts. "The party is wonderful. Everyone is impressed." "Great," he replied mechanically, without looking away from the city. "What are you thinking about?" For a moment, Alex considered sharing the truth, that he was thinking about Sophia, about the children he had never met, about the life he could have had. Instead, he turned with a rehearsed smile. "The expansion to Dubai, of course. This is just the beginning." Olivia returned the smile, but her eyes remained cold. She hadn't believed him, but it didn't matter. "Our marriage wasn't built on truths, but on mutual conveniences disguised as love for the cameras." "Of course," she replied softly, "always thinking about the next step. That's why you've come so far." The words carried a subtext that did not escape Alex. So far and so alone was what she really meant. That night, while the music echoed in the distance and Olivia slept in the next room, Alex remained awake, staring at the ceiling. His empire was growing. His stock was rising. His influence was expanding globally. By any metric, it was the height of success. So why, when he closed his eyes, was all he saw the serene smile of Sophia breastfeeding the children he refused to know? The inauguration of the Montero Royal Parity Hotel was the most talked about event in the historic city. Colored lights projected onto the imposing facade, while celebrities and business people paraded down the red carpet. In her apartment in the historic center, Sophia rocked the twins, while the distant lights of the inauguration reflected on the ceiling. She tried to ignore the buzz that filled the city, the helicopters flying over the bay, the photographers invading the quiet streets in search of the perfect angle of the new hotel. "It seems you can't escape him even if you want to," Maria commented, entering quietly with a cup of tea. Sophia smiled sadly, placing the sleeping Liam next to his brother in the crib. "It's not him I'm trying to escape, Maria. It's this artificial world, this life of appearances. The reporters keep calling. 3 were at the door today. Did you say we're out of town?" "As we agreed. But I don't know how long that story will work." Sophia sighed, looking at the angelic faces of her children. She knew this would happen eventually. She just hoped to have more time before the storm reached them. The distant sound of fireworks filtered through the windows. The official inauguration had begun. Sophia closed her eyes, feeling a pang of pain. It wasn't jealousy or regret. It was something more subtle, perhaps nostalgia for a life that had never truly existed. "Do you still love him?" Maria asked softly. "No," Sophia replied after a moment. "I don't love the man Alex has become. But maybe I still have affection for the ambitious young man I met, the one who dreamed of building something meaningful, not just accumulating power." At the Montero Royal Hotel, Alex toasted the success of his venture. His calculated smile never reached his eyes. By his side, Olivia was dazzling in a dress that perfectly matched the hall's decor. A coincidence carefully planned by the public relations team. "To the future," he declared, raising his glass. "To the global expansion of the Harrison experience, taking Brazilian refinement to the world." Polite applause echoed through the hall. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment that would grace magazine covers. Only the most observant would notice the tension in Alex's jaw, the way his eyes occasionally strayed to the windows overlooking the historic center. "You're distracted," Olivia whispered through gritted teeth without losing her smile. "Focus. The ambassador from the Emirates wants to talk about Dubai." Around midnight, when the party reached that point of controlled relaxation that only high-quality alcohol provides, Alex received a discreet signal from his head of security. "What happened?" he asked as soon as they were alone in his office. "We have a problem, sir. She's here." Alex's heart involuntarily sped up. "Sophia, impossible!" "Not Sophia, sir. The other one." Alex felt his blood run cold. "Where?" "At the main bar. She'd arrived with press credentials. Our staff only identified her once she was inside. Get her out of here. Discreetly. She claims to have information about your family situation. She threatened to make a scene if she's forced to leave. How much does she want? She didn't mention money. She said she wants to talk directly with you, in private. After a moment of reflection, Alex straightened his posture. Bring her here, without Olivia noticing. 5 minutes later, a woman of approximately 40 years old entered with confidence. Her brown hair had gray streaks, and her face, although marked by lines of worry, still held traces of the beauty that had once attracted George Harrison, Alex's father. Catherine. Alex greeted his stepmother coldly, only 6 years older than him. To what do I owe the pleasure? The woman smiled, but the gesture didn't reach her tired eyes. Aren't you going to invite me to sit down? Your father would have considered that rude. My father has been dead for 5 years, and you weren't welcome in his life for the last 10. Tell me what you want, and leave. I have 400 guests waiting. 400 people who mean absolutely nothing to you, while you ignore the few who really matter. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about your children. Catherine removed a yellowed envelope from her purse. I found this among your father's belongings. I thought you should see it, considering your current circumstances. What kind of game is this? No game, just the truth your father hid from you and Sophia throughout your entire marriage. With reluctance, Alex opened the envelope. Inside, he found old medical documents, dated from the 2nd year of his marriage. His eyes quickly scanned the pages, widening in shock. This can't be true, he murmured, his voice losing its usual firmness. But it is, Catherine confirmed. Your father discovered that you had a genetic problem that severely compromised your fertility, long before Sophia discovered her own condition. George knew that your chances of having children were minimal, but instead of telling you the truth, he let Sophia carry the burden of guilt for the lack of heirs alone. Why would you show me this? Alex finally asked. Why now? Catherine stood up. Because for years I watched your father destroy everything in the name of legacy, of the empire, of the appearance of perfection. I saw what that did to him. A bitter, lonely man, incapable of recognizing the worth of the people who truly cared. And I see you following exactly the same path, step by step, destroying your chance at real happiness. You hate my father. Why would you care about me? I don't hate George, Catherine replied softly. I loved him deeply, even when he discarded me, just as he did your mother, as you did with Sophia. She walked to the door. I only realized, too late, that love doesn't mean accepting to be destroyed by someone who chose power above all else. When the door closed, Alex remained motionless, the documents scattered in front of him. The truth, the one that his father and he himself had buried for years, was now emerging. Sophia was never the only reason for the absence of children. He carried the same defect that he had mercilessly used to publicly humiliate her. The hypocrisy of the situation hit him hard. For years, he had secretly blamed Sophia, using her condition as a justification for his emotional distance. And then, he turned that private guilt into public humiliation to facilitate his transition to a more advantageous relationship with Olivia. Alex, Olivia's voice filtered through the door. The journalists are waiting for the interview. Is everything okay? Quickly, he put the documents in the desk drawer, locking it. 1 minute, he replied, his voice returning to its controlled tone. Who was that woman? Olivia asked as they walked back to the hall. No one important, just a journalist trying to get an exclusive. A journalist who made you look like you saw a ghost? Before he could answer, they were interrupted by the press officer. Alex assumed his rehearsed posture, answering questions about investments and expansion, with the confidence of someone who controls every variable of his existence. But under the surface, a thought persisted. If his father had lied about this, what else had he lied about? If Alex had built his adult life following in his father's footsteps, how fundamentally wrong would his choices be? Hours later, in the presidential suite, Olivia carefully removed her makeup in front of the mirror. "Are you going to tell me what really happened?" she asked, her eyes meeting his through the reflection. Alex poured himself a whiskey without answering immediately. "What would you do if you discovered that your whole life was built on a lie?" Olivia studied him with an expression impossible to decipher. "That depends on whether the lie still serves my purposes." The brutal sincerity of her answer surprised him, although it shouldn't have. It was exactly the kind of cold pragmatism that he himself applied to business and relationships. "And what if the lie started to destroy everything around you?" he insisted. An enigmatic smile curved Olivia's lips. "Then I would create a new narrative that better served my goals. It's what we've always done, isn't it?" Around 3 in the morning, unable to sleep, Alex made an impulsive decision. Dressing in discreet clothes, he grabbed the keys to a less ostentatious car and silently left through the service entrance. The city was sleeping as he drove slowly through the cobblestone streets, with no specific destination. Eventually, he found himself near the historic center. The fresh air of the early morning carried the smell of the sea and jasmine. Alex walked with no definite direction, his thoughts as murky as the starless sky. That's when he turned a corner and saw it. That house with white walls and blue windows. Sophia's house. Its light was on, filtering gently through the curtains of the porch. Alex stopped, paralyzed by conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to run away, return to the controlled world he had built. Another part compelled him to cross the street, knock on the door, and confront the truth he had denied. The porch door opened. Sophia appeared, cradling a baby against her chest. Even from a distance, Alex could see the serene expression on her face as she murmured soft words to the child. His son. For 15 minutes that seemed like an eternity. He watched Sophia walk slowly along the porch, calming the baby. There was a sacred intimacy in the scene, something so genuine and pure that it made Alex feel like an intruder. When Sophia finally returned inside, Alex remained motionless for a few more moments. A single tear escaped, running down his face. "What do you really want, Alex?" His father's voice echoed in his mind. But this time, he felt only melancholy, as if he finally understood the true tragedy of George Harrison's life. A man who would die rich, powerful, and completely alone. The next morning, to the surprise of his entire team, Alex canceled all scheduled meetings. Dressing in informal clothes, he went to his lawyer's office. "I need you to prepare new documents," he announced without preamble. "I want to legally recognize the paternity of the twins and establish a visitation agreement with Sophia. No games, no manipulations, no attempts at control." The lawyer could not hide his perplexity. "Mr. Harrison, this completely contradicts our strategy. We were working to minimize your association with this situation." "The situation is my children," Alex replied with a calm that surprised himself. "And this new approach is not a suggestion, it's an order." While the lawyer reluctantly took notes, Alex looked out the window. On the other side of the square, local artisans were setting up their stalls, oblivious to the drama that was unfolding. Among them, he recognized a familiar figure, the elderly ceramist who had appeared in the investigators' photos. Mrs. Elena was carefully arranging hand-painted ceramic pieces, creations that carried decades of tradition. There was something in this authentic simplicity that touched him deeply, a counterpoint to the artificial world he had built. For a brief moment, he envied that old woman, who probably never owned a tenth of his fortune, but whose work and life seemed so profoundly aligned with something true. "There's one more thing," Alex said. "I want to make a substantial donation to the Parati Traditional Craft Preservation Program, anonymously." "Anonymously? But we would lose the opportunity for positive publicity." Alex smiled slightly. Exactly. Some things deserve to be done just because they are right, not for what they can bring us in return. As he left the office, Alex knew that the path ahead would be complex. He had no illusions that Sophia would forgive him easily, or that he could simply erase years of hurt with a single gesture. Olivia would certainly not passively accept this change that threatened her plans. But for the first time in years, Alex felt light, as if he had freed himself from a weight he didn't even know he was carrying. As he walked through the historic streets, mixing anonymously with tourists and residents, he allowed himself to imagine a different future, a future where success would not be measured by acquisitions or expansions, but by the ability to recognize and value what truly mattered before it was too late. In the distance, the bells of the main church announced noon, their sound traveling through centuries. And Alex Harrison, the man who had spent his adult life trying to control every minute of his existence, allowed himself, just for a moment, to live fully in the present, without planning, without calculating, simply being. The unsentimental truth. A week after the inauguration of the Montero Royal Parati Hotel, Sophia watched the twins play on the porch. Leo was trying to lift himself up by his arms, while Liam, more contemplative, followed a blue butterfly perched on the railing with his eyes. Maria came out of the kitchen bringing fresh coffee and fruits. The lawyer called again, she informed her in a low voice. He insists on setting up a meeting for today. Sophia sighed. What did he say this time? Just that Mr. Harrison has an important proposal and prefers to discuss it in person. An ironic smile curved Sophia's lips. After using lawyers to keep us apart for months, now he wants a direct conversation? What changed? Don't you think this sudden interest is strange? First, the financial offer you refused, now this. I'm afraid it's some kind of trap. Alex is many things, but he has never been dishonest in his intentions, Sophia replied, surprising herself with her own defense of her ex-husband. Manipulative, calculating, obsessed with control? Yes, but he always made it clear what he wanted. She looked at her children, her heart overflowing with love. I told the lawyer I would agree to meet him, but with conditions. Here at my house, with you present, and without lawyers or assistants. And what if he brings that wife of his? Maria asked, not hiding her disdain. I don't believe she'll come. Olivia is part of Alex's public spectacle, not his personal battles. At the panoramic restaurant of the Montero Royal Hotel, Alex watched the calm waters of the bay. Normally, he would be in a video conference with executives or reviewing financial spreadsheets. But today, he felt strangely disconnected from the operations that used to consume his days. That's the third call from Dubai you've ignored this morning, Olivia said, approaching in a silk-embroidered outfit. What's going on? Alex didn't look away from the bay. We need to talk, Olivia. Something in the gravity of his tone made her sit across from him, for the first time, genuinely attentive. About? I received the DNA results. It officially confirmed what we already knew. The twins are my sons. Olivia nodded slowly. There was no surprise in her meticulously made-up eyes, only calculation. And what does that change exactly? We've known that since the beginning. It changes everything. I'm going to publicly acknowledge them and establish a visitation agreement with Sophia. A charged silence followed the declaration. Olivia studied her husband's face as if looking for signs that he was joking. It's an interesting move, she finally concluded. Acknowledge paternity and control the narrative before the press turns it into a bigger scandal. Intelligent, Alex shook his head. It's not about controlling the narrative. It's about taking responsibility. Responsibility, Olivia repeated, as if it were an alien concept. Since when does Alex Harrison care about that more than strategy and image? Since I discovered that my father lied to me my whole life, he replied, his voice low but firm. "Since I realized that I'm repeating the exact same mistakes that turned him into a rich, powerful, and profoundly unhappy man." Olivia leaned forward, her eyes suddenly alert. "What are you talking about? What lie?" Alex hesitated. The truth about his medical condition seemed strangely intimate to share with Olivia, the woman with whom he shared a bed, but not his heart. However, if he was committed to the new direction he wanted for his life, honesty needed to start now. "I discovered medical documents that my father kept secret," he explained calmly. "I have a genetic problem that seriously compromises my fertility." He knew about this years before Sophia discovered her own condition, but he let her carry the entire burden of guilt for the lack of children. And the most ironic part is that the twins are a kind of statistical miracle. The chances of me fathering children, even with assisted fertilization, were minimal. Olivia processed the information in silence. When she finally spoke, her voice was controlled, but something cold had settled in her eyes. "That's why you've changed your mind about the babies. You're not going to have other children. Maybe, maybe not. But it's not about that. It's about realizing that I've spent my life repeating the patterns my father established, choosing power and control over genuine connections. It's about not wanting to die like him, surrounded by achievements, but with no one who truly cared." Olivia stood up abruptly. "What a convenient time for this spiritual awakening, Alex. Just when you discovered that you probably can't give me the children we discussed before the wedding." The accusation hit him like a physical blow, mainly because it contained a painful truth. He and Olivia had discussed children. Yes, always in practical terms. The perfect heirs for the empire, conceived at the ideal time in their careers. "It's not just about children," he replied. "It's about honesty, about building something real, not just a polished facade for the cameras." A cold smile curved Olivia's lips. "Real. Our relationship was always exactly what both of us wanted, a mutually beneficial strategic alliance. You needed a young, stunning wife to renew your public image. I needed the power and connections of the Harrison name to expand my personal brand. Don't come at me now with speeches about authenticity, Alex. It doesn't suit you." Alex watched the woman in front of him. Beautiful, ruthless, calculating. A perfect mirror of what he himself had been for years. The realization hit him. There was no love between them, just an elaborate dance of interests and appearances. "You're right. What we have has never been real. Maybe it's time we both admitted that." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting exactly?" "I think we both know that this marriage will not survive my decision to acknowledge the twins and reconfigure my priorities. The question is how we will manage this transition." Olivia straightened her posture. "If you think I'm simply going to accept being discarded after all the personal investment I've made in this relationship, you don't know me, Alex. I'm not Sophia, willing to disappear silently with an apology and a few crumbs of your fortune." Alex nodded slowly, recognizing the dangerous ground. "I never underestimated your intelligence or determination. I'm proposing a respectful separation that protects both of our interests. You would maintain your position as brand ambassador for a transition period, with appropriate compensation." Olivia let out a humorless laugh. "Always the negotiator. Always putting values on feelings, prices on relationships. You think you're changing, Alex, but you're still the same man. You're just negotiating a new deal that seems more advantageous now." Before he could respond, she walked to the exit, stopping only to add, "Think carefully before turning this into a war. I have much more to reveal about you and your methods than you imagine." As he watched Olivia walk away, Alex felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The path ahead was full of obstacles, many created by his own choices. But for the first time in a long time, he felt that he was walking in the right direction, even if it was the most difficult one. His phone vibrated with a message from his lawyer. She agreed to meet you today at 4 o'clock at her house, without lawyers, without assistance. Something unexpected stirred in Alex's chest. It was not anxiety or strategic calculation, but an almost forgotten emotion. Hope, a different kind of value. At the craft fair in Parati's Central Plaza, Sophia arranged her ceramic pieces. The vases inspired by the colors of the bay attracted curious glances from tourists. Beside her, the twins were sleeping in a double stroller, protected from the sun by a colorful cover made by Sorelena, who was working at the neighboring stall. "The girl from the magazine is back," the old woman murmured, without looking up. "Third time this week." Sophia noticed the young reporter who was pretending to be interested in the pieces, while clearly monitoring her stall. Since the hotel inauguration, the press's interest in the ex-wife and the secret heirs had intensified. "She's persistent, I have to admit," Sophia replied, continuing to organize her ceramics. "It's easier to scare a buzzard from carrion than a gossip reporter," Mrs. Elena philosophized, bringing a smile to Sophia's face. "But don't worry, this storm will pass too." Liam began to wake up. Sophia immediately left the ceramics to attend to him. "Hello, my prince," she whispered, lifting him gently. "Did you have good dreams?" The baby responded with an adorable yawn. These simple moments had become her most precious treasure. The exchange of looks, the small gestures, the absolute trust with which her children surrendered to her care. "You are building something sacred here," Mrs. Elena commented. "Something that no money can buy." "Thank you, Mrs. Elena, for everything. I don't know what I would have done without your wisdom these past few months." The old woman waved her hand, dismissing the thanks. "The wisdom isn't mine, my daughter. It was always inside you, just waiting for the right moment to blossom." The reporter finally approached, her professional smile barely disguising her eagerness for an exclusive. "Your work is beautiful. How long have you been working with ceramics?" Sophia smiled politely. "Thank you. I only started 6 months ago, but I had the best teacher in Brazil," she added, indicating Mrs. Elena. 6 months? That coincides with your move to Parati after the divorce, doesn't it?" Sophia took a deep breath. "Yes, I moved to Parati about a year ago. And how do you feel now that your ex-husband has opened a luxury hotel practically next to your house? Many consider it a provocation." Sophia adjusted Liam in her arms. "Parati is a wonderful city that welcomes everyone. I'm sure the new hotel will be a success, like all of the Harrison chain's ventures." The reporter seemed disappointed with the neutral answer. "And what about the rumors that Alex Harrison requested DNA tests to confirm the paternity of the twins?" A flash of irritation crossed Sophia, but she maintained her serene expression. "I don't comment on rumors, especially those that involve my children. They deserve privacy and dignity." Before the reporter could insist, Mrs. Elena intervened. "The lady has answered enough, don't you think? If you really want a good story, you should learn about the legend of the Mermaid of Parati. They say she appears in the bay on nights of the full moon and grants wishes to pure hearts. But be careful what you wish for. Mermaids see beyond appearances, straight into people's souls." Disconcerted, the reporter mumbled a thank you and walked away, frustrated at not getting the bombshell statements she had hoped for. "Thank you, Mrs. Elena," Sophia whispered. "You are my guardian. I'm just tired of these newsflies buzzing around a story that doesn't belong to them." The hours passed quickly. Sophia sold 3 of her most elaborate pieces to foreign tourists and received a commission for a set of plates from a local restaurant. Small victories that filled her with genuine pride. Not for the amount of money, but for the satisfaction of creating something with her own hands. When the church clock announced 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Sophia began to pack up her pieces. The meeting with Alex was approaching, and she needed to prepare, not just logistically, but emotionally. "It's going to be okay," Mrs. Elena assured her. "Remember, you're not the same woman he knew. Your roots have grown, your spine has straightened, your heart has strengthened." Back at the house, Sophia bathed the twins and dressed them in clean clothes. Not to impress Alex, but because these small rituals of care helped her to center herself, to remember what truly mattered. Maria prepared lemongrass tea and organized the room, arranging colorful cushions on the wicker sofa and placing some of Sophia's most beautiful ceramics on the shelves. "Are we not trying too hard to welcome someone who hurt us so much?" she asked, unable to hide her disapproval. Sophia finished arranging her hair in a simple bun. "We're not doing this for him, Maria. We're doing it for the boys. They deserve to know their father, regardless of what happened between us. And what if he wants to take them from you? Then I'll fight with all my might. But I don't believe that's what he wants." At 4 o'clock sharp, the sound of a car parking alerted the two women. Sophia took a deep breath, preparing for the meeting that would mark the beginning of a new chapter in her life. The gentle knock on the door seemed to carry the weight of the past, the present, and the possibilities of the future. Sophia exchanged one last look with Maria, who nodded encouragingly, and walked to open the door and face the man who had been simultaneously the greatest love and the greatest disappointment of her life. The beginning of a new family. The golden afternoon of parity embraced the historic city when Sophia opened her door. Alex, wearing simple clothes, jeans and a light blue shirt without ostentatious symbols of power, seemed strangely vulnerable in front of her. "Hello, Sophia." His voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Thank you for having me." "Come in," she replied simply, stepping aside to let him pass. Alex took a few steps into the living room, his eyes immediately drawn to the rug where the twins were playing under Maria's watchful eye. Something indescribable crossed his face, a mixture of fear, fascination, and emotion. "Are they them?" he murmured, more to himself. It wasn't a question, but a statement filled with reality. Sophia nodded. "Leo and Liam. Leo is the more active one, always trying to lift his head. Liam is more observant, contemplative." Alex remained motionless. "Can I approach?" "Of course," Sophia replied, guiding him to the rug. Maria, though suspicious, moved away slightly. Alex knelt slowly, his gaze fixed on the small beings who represented his past and his future. Leo, noticing the stranger, paused his attempt to lift his head and stared at Alex with curious eyes, so similar to his own. "They're perfect," Alex's voice failed. "So small and yet so complete." Sophia sat beside him. "They are whole people from the first day, just waiting to reveal who they are." For a few minutes, silence enveloped the room, almost irreverent, as if everyone recognized the magnitude of the moment. Liam let out a small sound of contentment, his eyes following a streak of sun that danced on the floor. "I wanted to apologize," Alex said finally. "Not just for the last few months, but for everything. For all the years I put ambition above connection, appearances above truth." Sophia watched him intently, looking for signs of the calculating manipulation that had so characterized the end of their marriage. To her surprise, she found only a raw sincerity. "What changed, Alex? A few weeks ago, your lawyers were trying to convince me to disappear with the children in exchange for money." Alex finally looked away from the twins to face her directly. "I discovered something about myself, about my father, actually. That changed everything." With a controlled but emotionally honest voice, he explained about the medical documents revealed by Catherine, about the hypocrisy that had sustained his resentment, about the realization that he was repeating his father's same mistakes. He died alone, Sophia, surrounded by impressive achievements, but with no one who genuinely cared. When I looked at my life, I realized I was walking toward the exact same end. Sophia absorbed the revelation in silence. The irony was not lost on her. For years, she had carried the weight of guilt for the lack of children, when, in fact, they both shared that condition. "Why would your father hide that from you?" she finally asked. because in his distorted view, it would have been perceived as weakness. And George Harrison did not allow for weaknesses either in himself or in his heir. Sophia processed the information, connecting it with patterns she had observed during years of marriage. "I'm sorry you discovered this way, but I don't understand what you expect now." Alex took a deep breath. "I want to get to know my children, Sophia, not to control them or turn them into pawns, not to use them as extensions of my ego. I simply want the chance to be present in their lives, to learn how to be a father, something I never had a good example of how to do." His gaze was direct, vulnerable. "I'm not asking for forgiveness for what I did, nor am I expecting us to erase the past. I'm just asking for the opportunity to do better from now on." Sophia felt the weight of that declaration. It wasn't a simple request, but it also wasn't unreasonable. As much as Alex had hurt her, the twins deserved the chance to know their father. "This won't be easy," she replied finally. "There's a lot of hurt, a lot of distrust to overcome." "I know," Alex nodded, "and I'm willing to prove, with time and consistency, that my intentions are genuine." Leo let out a small cry that attracted everyone's attention. His little arms waved in the air, as if trying to reach for something invisible. "He likes to be lifted up," Sophia explained with a small smile. "He loves the feeling of height, of seeing the world from a new perspective." Alex looked at his son, then at Sophia, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded slightly, with almost reverent care. Lifted Leo into his arms for the first time. The moment father and son looked at each other directly was like a small miracle. Leo observed his face with the curious intensity of babies, then opened a toothless smile that lit up his small face. "He smiled at me." Alex's voice was filled with astonishment. "He feels your emotion," Sophia replied. "Babies are wise that way. They perceive what is beyond words." Liam, not wanting to be left behind, began to make small sounds. Sophia picked him up and sat beside Alex, allowing the twins to see each other. "They communicate with each other in a way we don't fully understand," she explained. "Sometimes one wakes up moments before the other starts to cry, as if he knows his brother is going to need comfort." Alex absorbed every word like someone thirsty for knowledge. "How do you do it, Sophia? How do you know exactly what they need, what they're feeling?" The question was genuinely admiring, without any of the condescension that had so often marked their interactions during their marriage. "I don't always know," she admitted honestly. "Many nights I've spent awake trying to understand why one of them was crying inconsolably. It's a journey of constant discovery, of learning to listen beyond words." Maria intervened. "I'll go prepare some more tea. Would anyone like some?" Alex carefully returned Leo to the rug. "I'll have some, thank you." When Maria withdrew to the kitchen, Sophia addressed more practical matters. "How do you imagine this working, Alex? Your life is completely different from ours." Alex nodded. "I don't give all the answers yet, Sophia. But I know I want to be present consistently, not just as an occasional figure who shows up with expensive gifts, but without a real connection. I'm reevaluating many things in my life, including my professional priorities." "And Olivia?" The question was inevitable. "Our marriage is ending. It was a partnership of mutual convenience, not a true union. The discovery about my medical condition just accelerated the inevitable." "She won't accept that easily," Sophia observed. "I'm aware," he replied. "But some battles need to be faced, even when it would be easier to continue on the same comfortable path." The afternoon sun was beginning to change its angle. Liam fell asleep on Sophia's lap, exhausted. Leo continued to explore the rug, occasionally looking at Alex as if reevaluating this new element in his small universe. "Mrs. Elena told me about your work with ceramics," Alex commented, looking at the pieces on the shelves. "They're beautiful, Sophia. They have your essence in every curve, every shade." The sincere compliment caught her off guard, During their marriage, Alex had rarely noticed her small projects or hobbies. "Thank you," she replied simply. "It's a job that connects me with something bigger. Each piece carries a bit of the tradition of this land, passed down through generations of skilled hands like Mrs. Elena's. You found your place here." It wasn't a question, but a respectful statement. Sophia nodded, looking out the window at the old roofs that stretched to the sea. "Parati welcomed me when I was broken, Alex. It offered me not just refuge, but purpose. These streets have stories that predate all of our little personal tragedies." The depth of the observation resonated between them. For a moment, Alex glimpsed the woman Sophia had always been beneath the wife of role he had inadvertently imposed on her. A complete person with her own perceptions. The conversation flowed to more practical matters: the baby's routines, health issues, preferences, and personalities that were already beginning to manifest. "Leo has your determination," Sophia observed, as the baby persistently tried to reach for a toy. "He doesn't give up easily on what he wants." Alex smiled, recognizing the trait. "And Liam? What did he inherit from me?" "Your observational skills. Nothing escapes his eyes. He absorbs everything, processes it in his own way." Time passed quickly, and soon the sun began to set. Alex realized that he had been there for almost 2 hours, probably the longest period he had spent without checking emails or making business calls in years. "I need to go," he finally said with visible reluctance. "But I would like to come back, if you'll allow it." Sophia studied him for a long moment. "The boys are usually more receptive in the morning after breakfast. If you want, you can come tomorrow around 9. "I'll be here. Thank you, Sophia." He stood up, casting one last look at the twins. Leo had finally fallen asleep too. "They truly are a miracle." "Yes, they are," Sophia agreed, accompanying him to the door. "And they deserve peace, so we can work together for their well-being, regardless of our shared past." On the doorstep, Alex hesitated. There was so much more he wanted to say, so many apologies to offer. But he knew that some journeys cannot be rushed. "Until tomorrow, then," he said simply. "Until tomorrow," Sophia replied, gently closing the door. Alex walked slowly through the historic streets. The twilight sky offered a spectacle of colors that would normally go unnoticed in his timed life. Later, after putting the twins to sleep, Sophia talked with Maria. "What do you think?" she asked. "Did he seem sincere?" The housekeeper considered the question carefully. "Yes, he did. But words are easy, Sophia. It will be his actions in the coming months that will reveal the truth." Sophia nodded, arranging the blanket over the sleeping babies. "I think he really wants to change." "For them?" Maria asked, indicating the twins. "Maybe for himself, more than anything," Sophia replied after reflecting. "And that makes all the difference." The two women remained silent for a few moments, watching the small lives that had irrevocably transformed their existence. "I'm not ready to forgive him completely," Sophia confessed. "Maybe I never will, but I'm willing to build something new for them." "That's more generosity than many would have," Maria observed, gently squeezing Sophia's shoulder. Outside the window, the crescent moon began its journey across the night sky, shedding silver light on the city. In its silent wisdom, Parati seemed to embrace this new narrative of redemption that was just beginning to unfold on its historic streets. While Sophia watched her sleeping children, a certainty settled in her heart. Regardless of what the future held, she had found her inner strength. She was no longer someone's shadow. She was not defined by her relationship with Alex or her reproductive capacity. She was complete in herself, an artist, a mother, a woman, capable of facing any storm. "Tomorrow will come with its own challenges," she murmured to her children. "But we will face them together, one day at a time." On the horizon, the first signs of a storm were forming over the ocean. But inside the small house with white walls and blue windows, there was peace, a peace won through pain and rebirth, through the courage to rebuild from the rubble of destroyed dreams. And perhaps, Sophia thought, that was the most important lesson she could pass on to her children. That true strength is not in never falling, but in the courage to rise once again, to find beauty where there was once only ashes. The rain began to fall gently on Parati, washing the cobblestone streets, the colorful walls, the old roofs. A natural baptism that seemed to symbolize the renewal that was just beginning for that improbably reunited family. The storm would pass, as all storms eventually pass, and when the sun rose again over the bay, it would illuminate a new day. Not perfect, not without challenges, but carrying the promise of possibilities that only hearts open to transformation can truly embrace.